Hey, this is Amy Fox with Work in Progress Texas, and I have been relaunching this YouTube channel. And last week I covered kind of what I've been doing over the last 14 months or so and my own health journey, touched on sobriety and some other things with the business. So I will make sure to post that link in the show notes just so you guys can understand if you missed that or whatever, and this doesn't make sense. You can go back and reference that. But what I decided to do at the end of that call was go down memory lane a little bit to recap my health and wellness journey overall, and also take you on this journey of me being in a calorie deficit. So I started a calorie deficit about 2 weeks ago, the first calorie deficit in over 14 months after really focusing on my sobriety, my mental health, my spiritual health, and really just nourishing my body and nailing down my habits and my routines so that I had some level of consistency and have made something that was sustainable long term. And I can tell you, this is the first fat loss phase genuinely that I have felt is like, this is pretty good. But even today, like when you kind of get into a deficit, my energy's a little zapped too. So I'll kind of speak to those things, but I wanted to prove that really my objective was to show when you take a year off and you focus on your routines and your methods and lifting consistently and eating enough protein and fiber, stress management, sleep, hydration, etc., that your result of a fat loss phase is better this go around. And that's what I want to prove. So I thought, why not go down memory lane and actually show you like where I started, which is very, very vulnerable because that means I'm going to be sharing my own pics. And you'll know like some of the faces I have chopped off because I don't always like my face first thing in the morning. I don't think anyone does. But some of them have the pictures, but you can see my tattoos. Okay, so my tattoos are consistent besides the fact that this one's probably newer, and that's how you'll know it's my body. Okay. I'm being honest. And then you get to see the iPhone evolutions. And then some of the pictures, I do wish like some of them are taken in a mirror. And this just shows the value of getting consistent, really good pictures from head to toe because it's easier to do a side-by-side comparison. So I thought once I go down memory lane, then I'll show you like current stats where I'm at right now, and we'll go from there. Because I figure, you know what? Here's Amy's journey of getting overweight and losing weight, and then my ups and downs with the journey that I've taken because I think I've learned some things and I'd like to help you. And I can say one of the things that I've learned is when I was younger in my 20s, I was dieting when I didn't need to be dieting. I was chronically dieting. I was chronically exercising. I got down to about 135 pounds as a 5'9" gal. So I am tall, and that plays into my scale weight. So honestly, 135-ish pounds, I mean, that is model size, right? Like, but it was pretty lean and pretty skinny. And the problem with that approach was that it wrecked my metabolism too long term. Normally, though, I would be walking around 150-ish, 160-ish, like no problem. That was kind of my base. So that was myself kind of growing up. That's kind of where I hung a little bit. It was kind of between that 130s and 145-ish range. And then maybe 150, 160 on a not paying attention base. And I never really grew up super fit or healthy. Like I didn't exercise regularly. Yes, I did Taekwondo like in high school. Yes, I did odds and ends. I leaned out a little bit in my 20s by just working on my parents' Bowflex. I didn't know what I was doing. I just did it. And you just have youth on your side at that point, you know? So when David and I met, we started dating and just knew we were each other's buddies. We started dating in 2014. 2015 is kind of when we just like flew off the rails as far as like eating and drinking whatever we wanted. We both gained about 40 to 50 pounds. So by the time we count around to our wedding in 2016, at the end of 2016, I was a good 50 pounds, 40 pounds or so heavier. And then he was the same. So we don't even have wedding photos up because we would we didn't like it the way we looked. So let me just show you kind of where that starting point was. Here is my vulnerable moment. Oh my gosh. Okay, here we go. Okay. So this is where I started. It was probably about 205 pounds or so, a little bit, maybe 210 here. So again, as a 5'9" female, that plays a role. And then as I started to join, I started Beachbody. So I was getting my certifications, my health coaching certifications, and then I was starting to jump into Beachbody. And so I'm never going to knock Beachbody because I do believe that they do good things, and there was community and there was a really supportive environment and It was my first exposure to coaching and group coaching and things like that. But really long term, just like when I was chronically dieting and exercising in my 20s, it had a similar approach to it with, like daily cardio style based workouts that your body just gets really good at. So why I mention that is because here you can start to see like the picture of the three here. I don't know if my mouse is able to be seen, but you can see that progression of like, here's my, here's where I'm starting point is. And then here is my, middle ground, the middle picture here really kind of inflamed. And of course, because I'm tall, some of it's distributed a little bit, maybe better than it might show up on someone who's 5'2", right? Because that's just how it works. But then you can see I got pretty lean. And if I want to point out something about this picture, I am skinny, like fat here, right? Like this, I didn't build muscle mass. I got smaller. I became a smaller size of myself. And that smaller size of myself backfired, because then I basically put that weight back on. So what the picture that I want to highlight here is this picture here. So when I stopped doing, like I wasn't as maybe super consistent or whatever, because I didn't build that muscle mass, I didn't strengthen my metabolism. So these pictures here are kind of a little bit out of order. I think what I'm showing you here again is my starting point, kind of that first picture that I took really officially after our wedding kind of thing, starting to lean out or whatever. And then this part is me, like, again, not being consistent or kind of falling off a little bit with Beachbody, and then just putting the fluff back on really, really easily. So that's one reason why I'm so protective about women being careful with the kind of high intensity workouts they're doing and when they're doing and how often they're doing them, because you're just breaking down muscle tissue. And so that's what resulted in me coming back to this physique here after I stopped the Beachbody style of workouts. So then this is first Phorm, and that's kind of that next level that I went to, which was like still an affiliate kind of style of program, but it wasn't necessarily my own business. But I love first Phorm. I love their products. I love their community. I'll always be a fan forever. So this was my first Phorm challenge. And this was basically that 90-day, or was it? This was, oh, I got another picture. Hold on. There we go. This is a better picture. I was gonna say that because it was like a longer, it was like a 2 months. So April 5th to May 30th, I think it's 2020 something. I can't see the other one there. But this is my progression out of Beachbody and turning into that kind of fluffy mush, and then doing actual strength training based workouts. Now they were still somewhat circuit style-ish, but it was my first exposure to officially being programmed and to do strength training, meaning that there were some rest periods, meaning you're focusing on compound movements like deadlifts, squats, rows, shoulder press, chest press, those kinds of things. And definitely my physique was way more like definitely definition is what I'm trying to say. So building muscle, and that was fantastic. I was on my way. And then life happens. I'm feeling good. I'm taking pictures. I'll probably put that mirror back up in our new gym now. Feeling good, looking good in clothes, feeling pretty confident. And that's what I kept doing. So I got down to about 160-ish here, probably 165 range. I remember my cousin being like, "Oh my gosh." I was feeling good. Like that was a good method. And then obviously, as life throws curveballs like it did for us in 2021, 2022, of course, pandemic, etc., all of those kinds of things got off kilter. And of course, as I shared in my previous talk, it was kind of like the one thing that kept derailing me. And the one thing that kept derailing me was alcohol. So that's where I get to this point here. And what I wanted to show you today was this picture here is actually from this morning. So I wanted to tell a story. So this is where I started back in 2017-ish range, right? This was the beginning of 2023. And I really wish I had a picture at the beginning of 2024. I did not take a picture, and I obviously can see why, because I wasn't far off from this, but I'm going to show you some other stats in our app so you can kind of see some, because I think there's proof in the pudding, right? It's like show the journey, show the proof. But what's cool here is that this is probably the 194. I did get back up to about 205 when I had that 2023 year where I was just again, I guess you could say drinking heavily and not watching my calories and still doing enough to like not get bigger, not to keep gaining weight. So I kind of feel like I leveled out at that 195, 200-ish range. But this is where I'm at today, just 2 weeks into my calorie deficit, and I'll show you some of those other stats. So what's great about progress photos is that you're able to kind of like look at certain parts of the body and analyze it. And I know it's very vulnerable to do that, but I can see as the year where I basically just restored my metabolism, I didn't focus on dieting, but I lost some weight. I lost about 20 pounds. This is not, this is probably closer to that 20-pound range than this because again, I don't have a photo from 2024. But you can see here, like there's the dips in the, and there's some different pictures that show a little bit better, but this front angle here, I do wish I had the picture that David took on in 2023. I don't know why I got rid of that one. It might have been the lighting because the lighting in the rental house was really, really hard to get something in the morning. But you can at least see like there's some changes here in the abs. There's definitely some differences here in the shoulders. Again, I'm building muscle below this layer of fat and I'm, getting tighter. I wish I was standing the same way. So this is why I always encourage our clients to like try to take the same pictures the best of your ability, the same distance, the same position, because it's so helpful to see that. But I am seeing this difference here in the thighs. There's some more definition here. And I'm not posing, I'm not flexing, I'm just standing relaxed. Because if you pose and flex, that's going to make it look different. But I also see definitely better definition around the knees and definitely starting to see the strength in the shoulders and the chest compared to what was here, which just looks a little bit softer. So then let's get the back photo. Okay, this is the back photo of where I started, back in the day in the 2017 time frame. This was the beginning. Again, very vulnerable here. But as I can see from this picture here to this picture here, it's like things are tightening, things are leaning. Again, I do wish my hands were down in the same position. Again, reiterating the same position is helpful to compare, but there is a difference in the back and the strength in the arms. And usually the arms are one of the last places that women are going to lose weight. So just know that that's going to take a little bit of time. But I definitely see some tightness here, some more sculpting here. And then to me, the side picture was probably the easiest one to see a little bit more difference. I think there's a texture difference here. Part of that could be a little bit of the lighting, because again, I got mostly a single overhead light here, but you can see the definition here is starting to pop. You can see there's some leanness in the arms there. There's some strength that's there. There's some muscle that's there. And again, this is a picture that I obviously took in a hotel room when I was traveling, when I had a traveling job, but you can kind of just see the difference of how it's evolved over time. So that's really the main pictures that I wanted to show for just some vulnerability. The fact that this is pretty much where I was 23, 24, 2023, 2024. And this is where I'm at now. And in this first week of my fat loss phase, I've already lost about 3 pounds or so, 3 or 4 pounds. So let me just show you this is what we use for our app. It's called EverFit. And so my last, my most that I'll just want to, again, proof is in the pudding, right? Where is my 2020? Okay, 2024. Here we go. 2024 was 205 pounds. And I started my deficit 2 weeks ago. And so I'm already from about, let's see, where was the last one? So 186 to about 183 right now. And that's what I wanted to start highlighting was I have felt like this has been one of the easiest fat loss phases that I have done because I have been prioritizing protein and fiber. Yes, it takes a little bit of practice, but a lot of what we do in the foundational piece when we're restoring people's metabolism is we try to create behaviors and habits that are going to be consistent in a deficit as well. So what's consistent is we try to have solid meals, 3 meals a day, and maybe a snack if needed, so that when you are in a calorie deficit, it's much easier not to snack. I mean, it's good not to snack anyways. Our society is very, very snack heavy, and it just continues to make your blood sugar go up and down. It's really good to have a solid meal, let your digestion do its thing, have your beverages and drinks in between, whatever you do, and then have your next meal. And because I've had that structured that way, that has made the calorie deficit super easy. And I've been making notes throughout the journey, so I'll touch on some notes there too. But then just to kind of look at like my chest is probably about the same as far as the boobies go. My waist has gone down. Let's see, what was it? 34 inches. So this would be if the last measurement here. Again, I didn't have consistent measurements from 2024. So this is still a little bit of a guide, but we've got, a good down 4.3%, which is great. The hip is about it's from 2022, it's down an inch or so, but it's kind of maintained. I think my hip area, the way I carry weight, it doesn't fluctuate too much there first. And then just some things changing as far as the arms. Like the arms, again, this is something that's going to take a little bit of time. So there has been a little bit of a slight increase there, but part of that can be the fact that I've built some muscle. Because if I look down at my arm, like I'm seeing the muscle pop up. And so sometimes pictures don't necessarily show all of that. And maybe that's where a DEXA scan would come in handy. And then, like an idiot, I was not measuring my thighs correctly until this morning. So that's where my starting point is right now. So it's one of those things where I don't mind showing you those numbers because it's like, hey, if I'm going to document my fat loss phase, it's like part of this is the measurements. That's the thing, is that, the story is truly like the measurements and your pictures and the scale. It's not just one thing. So then if I go over here, we do like the last 12 months, that was the starting point. And so now I'm down here. Oh, there we go. Finally the bar. So I don't know why it's not showing the bar here. Maybe it's just too old data. But there's the 192, and then there's current today, 183. And what's cool too is even I started my period on Sunday, which is relevant. I don't think guys are gonna be watching this, but it's relevant for us females. And I literally still was losing weight during that time frame too. So, a couple of notes that I would say I've noticed so far is that truly hitting your protein targets and your fiber targets, which we aim for about 25 grams of fiber minimum. And then we always want to aim for about the same amount of grams of protein that your goal weight would be, or maybe just a skosh under it. So I've kind of aimed for that 160, that 150 to 160 range. Some days are better than others. And then aiming for that 25 grams of fiber has been super, super helpful to feel satiated. Now, sometimes I do take berberine with one of my meals. Berberine is a helpful thing for blood sugar control too. And it's like I'm pretty sure it's in the category of bitters, which that's why they classify it as like a GLP-1 kind of a mimicker. Like that's kind of helps you with appetite control. And that does help. But definitely like I'm having meals that feel satiating and good, and I just have to distract myself from if you have the habit of going and grabbing a snack or something in between, because that stuff adds up. You don't really have room for that when you're in a calorie deficit. A lot of the times, when we do a calorie deficit, we are focusing on the protein. The protein is usually staying a little bit at the same, or we're increasing it a little bit. And then the carbs and fats can always fall wherever they need to fall. A lot of the times in a calorie deficit, I tend to lean more to a higher fat, a little more satiating, but there's more calories in that. So there's 9 calories per gram in fat, and then there's 4 calories per gram in carbohydrates and protein. So a lot of the times when you're in a calorie deficit, we're dropping the carbs and the fats and the protein staying the same. So you usually have to kind of pick what kind of carb source are you going to have a splurge in that day, right? Like usually we want the carbs to be coming from fruits and veggies. We want those volume foods to help with satiation. So then a lot of the times it's not that you can't have other fun carb sources, it's just being smart about what you pick. Like you wouldn't have oatmeal and granola in the same day in a calorie deficit. You probably could have that in a maintenance, especially if you're working out that day. So in a calorie deficit, you kind of have to pick one or the other. And that's where I find that the volume foods like fruits and veggies are going to play in your favor because they're going to beef up whatever you're eating, give you a little bit of fiber and some volume. And that way, and the calories are super, super low with that kind of stuff. So that just gives you more wiggle room in the calorie deficit. In a calorie deficit, you do have to plan and you do have to, in a sense, say no to some things for this short period of time. That's why I like to get in and get out as quickly as possible, reassess, reboot, and then get back into it depending on how much more you have to lose. And a lot of the times, again, your ideal body that you're looking for is probably going to weigh more than you think. And sometimes it can weigh almost similar to where you're at, depending on how much you have to lose. So I could see myself as I continue to build muscle mass, like, getting to a point where that 160 is kind of that's my point. That's my end point, because I want to have muscle as well. And I want to have a strong metabolism so that I don't go back to that soft, mushy thing, right? And that's the foundation that I've built so far with strength training. Now, I also think that I might have lost weight a little bit pretty easily in the two, like 3 pounds in 2 weeks is actually pretty good. We usually see about a half a pound to a pound a week in a fat loss phase. And so the fact that I've done about 1.5 each week is pretty significant for a fat loss phase. And that's also an indicating that we are not losing precious muscle. We're going nice and slow and steady. So the fact that I lost some weight around my period was actually quite interesting, but I also think it's because my steps and my workouts have been off just a little bit. So to be totally honest with you, I have not been getting in like thousands, like my 7,000 step every single day goal. Like I've been getting them kind of every other day. So I've actually worked out a little bit less and walked a little bit less just with the kind of season that I'm in. So I'm still pushing for that. I still want people to work out. I still want you to lift heavy. I still want you to do stuff. We might change some things around just a little bit. But when you do work out, you are going to have increased hunger. So you have to plan for that. You want to make sure you've got your fuel around your workouts, and then you want to, you're just going to have to prepare that maybe some hunger cues are going to come. So that's where walking does come in handy because it's a great distraction and it's kind of like an appetite suppressant, especially when it's warmer out. I find that a calorie deficit is easier to do when the weather's warmer because my appetite is adjusted based on the temperatures. So just know that excessive exercise is going to increase hunger because that's what it's supposed to do. Like you're supposed to fuel yourself to perform well. And so you just have to be careful. So sometimes maybe the intensity won't be as much, or maybe the workouts will be a little bit shorter sometimes, depending on where your energy levels are. And that's why having a coach kind of guide you through that stuff and talk you through that and teach you through that stuff is going to be super helpful. So those are kind of the things that I've noticed so far is like I'm feeling really satiated. I felt really good. Yes, if I have a reason for my meal to be a little delayed, I can feel a little fatigue. But also what I've been doing in between meals is maybe I'll have like a root beer zero, or I'll have a soda water, or I'll have hydration. I'll just continue to hydrate. You can have pickles if you feel like you're kind of like wanting something salty. That's a great kind of empty calorie thing with some salts in there. And then we talk about walking and distracting yourself. So it's really just kind of flexing that muscle to be like, I'm not going to give into this. I have a goal. And yes, when I go out in public, I have to make some adjustments. I have to plan for like a potluck tomorrow. Last weekend, David played at a show, and I actually didn't really track my dinner. I had a good chunk of calories left over because usually what I do if I'm going out is I just do a protein focus during the day, which leaves my carbs and fats for the evening, whatever that event is going to be. And I didn't track all the cheese and crackers I had, like it was some kind of charcuterie board. And I still lost weight. So it's one of those things where like this routine, this method, this it's like it's really working. And again, my objective is to prove that like it's not suffering, but it is discipline and it is an adjustment and it is a mindset. And that's why I like to get women prepared and ready for these kinds of phases, because if we can make you strong and resilient, it's not going to be torture, but it's not fun either. It's not fun to have to limit yourself. It's not fun to not be able to eat out as much. It's not fun to not have that wiggle room. And I'm just being honest about that. It's just not. I mean, whoever says calorie deficits are great are liars. But it doesn't mean that it has to be torture or miserable. And I have felt miserable. It has not been torture. It's actually been really kind of like a nice break from consistently eating, in a maintenance area. And it just feels different this time. I don't think it's a placebo effect. And I'm not trying to act and pretend like it is, or like, just to bait switch people into something. I'm truly being genuine with what I'm saying as I'm evaluating and looking at it. And I do expect the scale to fluctuate. Currently, it's just kind of had a steady fat loss, but maybe because I have been consistent with things, it'll continue to be like that. So stay tuned. So every single week, I'll kind of just do a recap of the week and the notes that I just went over as far as hitting your protein and fiber goals, making sure you figure out what carbohydrate source that's going to be the fun carbohydrate of the day, because you kind of have to decide between them. Like, do you want pizza? Do you want bread? Do you want an English muffin? Do you want granola? Like, you have to kind of pick those, but the fruits and veggies is kind of like free game. And then, of course, just knowing that when you work out excessively, there probably is some more hunger there. Like when I had my lifting day on Wednesday, I was definitely hungry that day. I could feel it. So I just kept with the plan and I kept hydrated. And also we do give our gals like a little calorie window. There's like a little bit of a range because we're not looking for perfection anyways. It's like if you're about 100 calories under, 100 calories over, that's okay. We're just kind of giving a little bit of a range to aim for. So on your workout days, you could be a little bit on the higher end, and on your non-workout days, be on the lower end. That's pretty easy to navigate. So you know, there's my pictures, there's my stuff. And, I, if you need anything, you have any questions or follow-up stuff, just let me know, comment below. And then you can follow me on Bloom in perimenopause on Instagram, and I'll put that link below as well too. And of course, if you'd like to jump into our free Facebook group, I basically give out weekly goodies and comments in there too if you'd like a community for support. So very curious your thoughts. Again, being vulnerable, unedited, raw version of Amy Fox here. So thanks for watching whatever time you're doing, and I'll see you next week.